think I'm going to give this a second to warm up. Thinking. It's thinking. I know it's live on some things, but not on everything else. I want to make sure we're live everywhere. We're live on YouTube. Hey, everybody. It's Tina-Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup News. I am back in the studio after being on the road the last couple of weeks. We've been covering, obviously, the UAW strikes, spent some fabulous time there in Michigan and Ohio, met some wonderful people. We are going to continue to keep an eye on the strikes, obviously. But we wanted to get back to some regular programming in the meantime. So Right-Wing Insanity is always Fridays. We do Left-Wing Insanity most other days of the week, but Friday we reserve for the right wing. So welcome to the show. This week I'm going to be discussing a few things, but the main gist of it is going to focus on the cult known as the rod of I can't remember what, the AR-15 cult that was started by the son whose father started another cult, the Moonies. Some of you might know the Moonies from back in the 70s. This was a group that was started by a Korean American. He was a bit of a nationalist. He was anti-communist. He wanted everybody to speak Korean, but he's most well known for basically marrying strangers in these mass weddings. So he would have these weddings with like 500 cult members, and everybody would be marrying each other. They'd never met before. So it would be this mass stranger wedding and other crazy stuff. But here to discuss this and other things with me today is Zach Roberts. Welcome to the show, Zach. You've been on before. You're a journalist based on the East Coast. You write for the Beacon County and other outlets. You've worked with Greg Palast, I know, on his documentary. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you covered they have an annual thing, the AR-15, Church of AR-15s. What's their actual iron what now?
It's the Rod of Iron Ministries.
Rod of Iron Ministries.
They are a splinter group of the Unification Church, which, as you said, the Moonies. They certainly still like talk about their father. He is he calls himself the second king. He's the son, the one of the couple sons that Reverend Moon had. Right. And his brother owns the Car Arms, which is a huge funder of right-wing talk radio. And also they have, basically, if you buy a Tommy gun or a Desert Eagle, you're probably going to buy it from them.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting information. Okay, so I want to put up some photos of this guy so they can see what he looks like. He wears a crown of bullets. It's made out of bullets. Colin, can we put up some of those photos so folks can see this? Because it's kind of... What's going on here?
Yeah, he has a golden AR-15 that he likes to carry around. And he actually raps under Bullet Head. I think it's King Bullet Head. And he's actually unfortunately the audio on it is like completely and totally blown out. Like I took video of it. He rapped at the thing. He's actually not terrible. His raps, mind you, are offensively nightmarishly bad. They're like wild, like beyond like normal sexism when it comes to
King Bullet Head, you think?
Yes. Yeah, shockingly. Yeah. He also, I mean, like one of his songs has like mentions Jack Posobiec in it. So like, that's the level of like greatness when you're like calling out Poso. Yeah. But I do have to say, out of all of, there's a lot of like MAGA rappers out there and like musicians and singers, and like both like all the other journalists that were there were just like,
it's a decent rapper,
really bad because it's like, okay,
but if we put him next
really
to like
terrible, but like,
other guys, he's probably not great.
Yeah. Kanye's okay. Kanye still stands as the best like far right extremist rapper. Okay,
right,
like he's still, don't worry, he's still the Nazi goat.
You did not just say that. You did. All right. I mean, that might.
He said he was. He's not. I don't think that's a controversial statement. Like when you're like, I think not anymore. Did some good things.
Right. No, I know you're. I mean, he's sort of earned that. He's earned that. Yeah, he's earned that title at this point. So you recently just did a piece for the Bucks County Beacon, Rod of Iron Festival in Pennsylvania. Shows how dangerous and deranged the cult is. So this was a 2-day carnival that they do, every year, annually? How long have they been doing this for?
Yes, it's a festival of MAGA madness. They unfortunately did not go with my original title, which was A Rod of Iron for Trump.
No, but hang on. Let me ask you this. My understanding, though, is that this cult has existed much longer than Trump has been in office. Is that
Oh yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So,
Like
what was their position before? I mean, obviously, they're supporting his run for presidency. They have a lot of the same ideals, but what was their grift, for lack of a better
mhm.
word, before that?
Yeah, so I mean, like as far as I can tell, and like the few people I've talked that were in the American Unification Church, not the Korean, which is like the big monster. Like
Right.
that's the monster, like huge numbers of people. Not saying they are monstrous and they are connected with far right politics as long as you can go back.
Right.
Reagan, everybody, Reverend Moon was seeing that all those mass weddings you saw, like if you were alive in the 80s.
Right. Like, no, it was a thing. I know this might sound really strange to the young ones,
Yeah.
but yeah, they used to have these mass weddings, and you would see this on the news. And you'd be like, "What is happening here?" And it would
Yeah,
be
like
straight.
Madison Square Garden mass, like
Right.
it would be the
Right.
entire, like my family always would be in Provincetown and Cape Cod, Massachusetts, every year, and the Moonies actually Reverend Moon owned a house that was on the water.
Wow.
Weirdly, Norman Mailer bought it from them, but that's a whole different story. But there would be mass weddings out on the, like when the tide was out there, and so like it's a very weird memory of like when I was like 5 years old, of like just huge numbers of people like walking down the streets and everything like that. Oddly, they stood out in Provincetown, which is its own level of weirdness,
Right.
awesome weirdness, not like that weirdness. But yeah, no, they've always been far right, but kind of but like I think like a lot of like spiritual edge religions, like you didn't know they were necessarily far right unless you were part of their politics. If you were just a member,
Right.
that's
You
the
know
way
what?
that's the
Hang
way I've
on.
gotten it from a lot of people. They're definitely in the it also seems like different. Like I talked to one guy, I went 2 years ago as well, and I talked to one guy who was furious about the support of MAGA, the obsession with guns,
And
to
he
the
was a
point that he
cult
got
member?
kicked. That he was a cult. Yeah, he was a religious member. Yeah, I mean, he seemed way too informed to be like truly in the cult. But it was also kind of back in the 80s and 90s. It definitely, I don't think it was the sort of like in so much as like this version that's in Greeley, Pennsylvania, which is like very much a cult. Like it is like a closed group of people that
Right.
come in, they're shipped in and shipped out, and that type of thing. The kind of the version that it used to be was definitely a little bit more free flowing. You could be a Mooney, you'd show up to these mass events and that sort of thing and believe it, and it definitely had a little bit more of a spiritual, I wouldn't go so far as to say hippie vibe, but I mean, if you know enough hippies, you know that
Well, but hang on a second.
hippies
Let
are
me,
always liberals.
Zach. I
Like,
know, but Zach, let me
yeah.
ask you this, because I think you're reaching at a point here that's pretty good.
Mhm.
The perception of the Moonies, not the AR-15 group, the second group
Yeah.
here, but the original group. I think there was a perception that the Moonies were sort of lefty,
Yeah.
liberal hippies, but
Yeah.
that was never the case, because they were, one of their main doctrines was always anti-communism,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
just don't think people realize that.
Yeah. I mean, I also think it's like there's like a lot of that kind of like idea religions that aren't necessarily like Catholic, like you go to a church every Sunday, that you're attached to something, that like
Right.
you can be a part of it. Like I think again, like that's why like certain types of spiritualism, and I hate that word, but spiritualism, like especially like 9 times out of 10, it's literally trying to pick your pocket.
Right.
But it's like you could be part of that, but you realize that, oh wow, it's got this weird anti-vax views, and it's
Right.
got this weird, oh wow, this idea of it actually is weirdly anti-Semitic for some reason. Like you go to take the 2 steps down, but most people don't have to do that. Most people are just like, yeah, I like his words, I see his filtered words that come to Americans, and that sort of thing. But it definitely was, I mean, I think that it's hard to not take the leap and say that it's
Right.
very convenient that um, the church and kind of their outreach is definitely funded by an arms manufacturer, by Car Arms, which is
That would make
like,
sense.
it's my thing. So I mean, like, it's not like a crazy leap to go, yeah.
Right.
I mean, if they were a manufacturer of a soda brand, it wouldn't be weird if like the soda brand was part of the
Right, part of the worship.
worshiping a religion. Well, you don't take wine, you
It's
take
so weird.
some cola or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and so I mean, this is just, but I think that like it's very convenient. I mean, they're very convincing I do believe that they are far right. Justin Moon, who is the owner of who's the head of the Car Arms, I've spoken to him a couple times.
Is he a family member?
He's one of the brothers. Yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
He is. Yeah. The Moon that is the preacher, that is the pastor Moon. He is the anointed son, and there's a lot of he's literally called for the beheading of his mother, because there's a lot of infighting amongst the Moon family on who actually is like gets the like kind of the branding. I'm not quite sure how much more money there is. There's been a lot of breaking up of the religions, but it's an international religion. It was not behind, I won't say, but if you remember earlier, was it earlier this year? I think that the former Japanese prime minister was murdered or was assassinated. He was killed because he had connections to the Moonies in Japan. And
hang on, the prime minister or the person that killed
the former prime minister, the person who killed the person who was killed, the prime minister Abe, had connections to it, and so much as like Reagan had connections, that sort of thing. I'm not quite sure how much was thing, but he was either way, he was connected.
There was some sort of relationship.
Yeah, and the person that killed him, his mother was a member of the cult and was continually losing all of her money, tens of thousands of dollars, like all of her money. And he was very angry about that. And so he made a gun and shot him. And the woman, unfortunately, his mother has since, supposedly based on reporting that I've seen, has returned to the church. And because she's in a cult. I mean, that's the thing, is that, it's her, her version of family that is now.
It's very powerful.
Yeah. That's the reason
it's powerful.
That's the reason why the church is being kind of booted out of Japan. I think literally possibly today it might happen, or next week.
Okay, interesting. I want to put up a couple of photos that you took, photos number 1 and 2. So this, I think, is just a shot of do we know who these two are in the front?
So that's Reverend Moon on the left. And that's one of his, just basically a light holder, one of his parishioners. He's reading from the Bible. And right behind that is the Sunday night bonfire that they have. They're literally burning, metaphorically, not literally, metaphorically burning or symbolically, burning the Whore of Babylon. And
the what now?
Yeah.
Wait.
I didn't dig into like I've heard it explained before, but I can't like go down the thing. I'm not that type of Catholic. So I don't remember.
So they borrow heavily from Christianity. Obviously, it's a Christian
religion. It's a Christian based religion that has gone off in its own direction, and in the kind of. Yeah.
Right. Wait, hang on. I remember reading a couple years back. Didn't he say something about if Jesus Christ was alive today, he'd be a guns manufacturer, weapons?
Yeah. The rod of iron. The rod of iron is a misunderstanding of the Bible. I should know this like offhand at this point because I've done enough reporting on them. But basically, Jesus is talking about that you should buy weapons and
from his brother.
I'm actually trying to remember the quote from the Bible. Somebody who's watching this will lose their mind correcting it. But basically, he's speaking ironically. They're being like, "Oh, you should go and do this. It's worked out so well before," type of thing. And so like they use that quote saying that like, "Oh, he would buy," which is like, I mean, a lot of different Christian religions that refuse to go along with the kind of the peacenik version of Jesus. There you go. Somebody
has it.
Colin popped in. Predicts that Jesus will rule the nations with a rod of iron and a dash them in pieces like a potter's wheel. And the word rod refers to a shepherd. So, I mean, it's like they didn't have guns back then. You know what I mean? Like, so like it's not
right. So they're sort of all right. That is so wild. But
they continually cite the fact that like he's also, throw your swords away. Like they kind of throw that away, but decide to randomly pick, like most Christian religions, like
they're trying to sell guns. So now that I know that the brother is a gun manufacturer, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no, it's like it's kind of sad because it throws away a lot of the kind of like the crazy. I mean, believe me, there's more than enough crazy. But like a lot of it's just like Oh yeah, no, it is kind of just a grift.
Yeah,
And
it's kind of a
yeah,
grip. That's how
that was like
it comes
really
across to me.
the first time I covered them 2 years ago, and just like literally the Cars Arm store is directly directly in front of where the festival happens, and you're like, yeah, this is what this is.
This is what this is. All right. So photo 2, this has got a giant MAGA 2024 thank you veterans thing going on. Who are those folks in the front? What's going on here?
Well, it's a great photo of Donald Trump, from his years in the service. Um, obviously, I'm not quite sure what
Wait,
the veteran.
of all the things that never happened, that didn't happen.
Yeah, yes, exactly, yes. Him properly holding, note with proper gun safety as well. The finger
Right.
out from the trigger. Whatever like AI or Photoshop person they got going on there, like did a properly good job. But this is a Japanese choir that
Okay.
came in, all wearing basically their own version of the MAGA hat, and they had these huge banners. They were singing. There's probably about 50 of them in the what's like the big tent of the festival, and they sang "God Bless America," "Onward Christian Soldiers." They sang a couple other songs, "Battle Hymn of the Republic," and I think we'll probably show a little bit of the video of them at the torch when they burned everything at the end. But yeah, they came in, and yeah, that was unexpected, and also because I did not hear about that. Didn't happen 2 years ago, so that was a kind of surprising thing that happened, and somewhat terrifying.
Somewhat terrible. Let me ask you this, Zach. Do you think they're growing in numbers, their ranks? Did it seem like there were more people involved with it this year?
I mean, one of the problems, like 2 years ago, is when I covered it. It was COVID, and also it was kind of
So
a
hard to
rainy
gauge.
crappy days. It was rainy again. I would say the numbers are the same. It's really difficult to get to as well. And like it's like an hour and a half from Scranton. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a vacation area, so all the everywhere to rent, like it's like $150 minimum for a hotel. So I mean, they're limited by things. I don't want to give them credit for anything, but it's there's decent numbers there. And they certainly have within. I have not been able to, because the English language is definitely a barrier there with a lot of people. I haven't been able to talk to the very large Korean population there and see how many of them are shipped in. Definitely the choir, they said, was from Japan. And so like that's a hell of a trip to Greeley, Pennsylvania.
That's kind of interesting. So mainly you had Korean. So obviously it's a Korean based, but also American Korean based cult. So was the Moonies, but I would imagine that there'd be a much larger contingent of white Americans there, but that didn't seem to be the case.
There's certainly a number of them, but like the people that stick out through there, they kind of come in and out. It's a free festival that you can go to and see buy the wares, which is all like Donald Trump oriented or American flag or gun oriented. And so there's probably, I would say like 25% of the people that come in, but like they're not hanging out there the entire time. So like to gauge numbers, it's a little bit difficult to see what the kind of the breakdowns are. But I would definitely say that there's like a decent number of people. I mean, there was quite a few Proud Boys there, so they had their own booth.
Yeah, that's not surprising. They had a booth there, so they were selling Proud Boy gear at the.
They were selling J6. Like if you go to the BucksCountyBeacon.com website, there's Proud Boy. They were selling POW J6 2021. You are not forgotten mugs. And
do we have a photo of that? I think we might, right? You sent us so many.
Well, if you go to the Bucks County Beacon website, you can scroll down there if you want to do that. But
yeah, okay, I see. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a whole booth there. Okay, so it says Proud Boys. Yeah, Colin, can we put that up? That's oh, never mind. You're already there. Thank you, Colin. Colin, I'm not worthy. Colin completes me. So wow, they have POWJ6. We have mugs, we have stickers. We have all kinds of things here. Interesting. I'm not sure what I think of that, to be frank. I wonder if any of these folks are like also members of the cult. I doubt it. I mean, honestly, some of this is just grifting. You know, they know that there's an opportunity to sell wares there. They show up, you know, and they do have large defense bills that they need to be paying, obviously.
I mean, I covered a kind of an election denial festival that happened in Pennsylvania earlier, like a couple months ago. And also for the Bucks County Beacon, you can find it there. They also had a booth there. Like Moms for Liberty had 2 booths. There was a bunch of things. But the Proud Boys in Pennsylvania seem to be really kind of hitting the. I wonder if they're going to like flea markets and things like that. Like get some homegrown apples and carrots, and also maybe get an indictment from the DOJ. Right. And maybe break down your capital.
Welcome to 2023. I want to talk about Sebastian Gorka for a moment here. So first of all, let's talk about who Sebastian Gorka is before we play. We have a clip here where he's talking about actually a couple. I think George Soros is one. Yeah. Which is obviously the boogeyman for all these guys. And Antifa also, obviously. So Sebastian Gorka, you know, he's definitely a white supremacist. I don't know that he would own that title himself, but I think if you look at a lot of the things he said in the past, it's pretty clear that that's the case. Yeah. What is his connection here? What are your thoughts on who Sebastian Gorka is?
Well, I mean, they said it on stage, because I was actually wondering. So Gorka has a radio show. I believe it's on Salem Broadcasting, and the main sponsor is Car Arms. And so they literally, Justin Moon came on stage and he was like, "Thank you so much for you're our biggest supporter and everything." And so, yeah, I mean, it's like real simple there, is that he came out, and I guess he came out last year as well, which is again surprising. So, I mean, it's. Yeah, that's simply it. I mean, that's the connection they have, you know, simpatico when it comes to their beliefs.
These particular issues. Yeah. You know, so this might seem counterintuitive to a lot of folks, that Asian folks would be hanging out with a white supremacist and vice versa. But there is a lot of white supremacy ideology that views Asians as a separate category. And in fact, some of them have, you know, because the ones that believe in sort of race realism, they've had to, you know, kind of contend with the data that says a lot of the Asian cultures have higher IQs than white people do, because they want to accept the ones that are saying that Black folks have lower ones. You know, point blank, it's all hogwash. There's nothing that connects IQ to, or genetically connects your brain to. They also
revere Japan in a lot of ways. A lot of white nationalists do.
Right. I was going to get to that.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That's all right. Japan's a very much a nationalist country, always has been. So they sort of have respect for those things. So, I mean, they're in the ways that it might be kind of like we've learned in the last year or so that you can be also Hispanic and a white supremacist. I mean, you know, we've seen what Texas we had, you know, a right-wing guy down there that did a mass shooting that was Hispanic. So I think the more that folks see this stuff, and at first it's kind of shocking because it seems counterintuitive for the obvious reasons. Of course it does, right? But there are layers and layers to this onion. Let's Colin, can we play these 2 Sebastian Gorka clips? I know that they're in the Bucks article, but I think we have them separate. I don't know what's easier at this point. Might be easier just to play them from the article, or I can find the numbers. What should I do, Colin? Find the numbers?
Oh, are they not the first clips here?
I think they might be. Yes.
Let's go beyond the border. Fentanyl deaths. Let's talk about the fact that if you live in a Democrat city and it's run by Democrat chiefs of police and mayors, you're just not safe. We live in a nation where a pro-Antifa activist can be stabbed to death in front of his girlfriend on camera in New York. And what does the lunatic girlfriend do? Did you see this story this week? She refused to identify the murderer who stabbed her boyfriend in the heart because he was Black. Guys, this is a cult. Your boyfriend is murdered in front of you, and you're on the side of the guy who killed your boyfriend? These people are lunatics.
Never mind, it's false.
Never mind is a totally made up story, but that's, I mean, consider the source. I actually want to address something in the chat because I just want to make sure that I was clear on something I was saying. So race realists believe, they look at these data sets. If you look at the book, The Bell Curve, there's a bunch of data sets in there that actually stem. I don't want to get into like a 20-minute conversation on this, but they stem from a white supremacist organization, the Rushton Foundation. This is something that came many decades ago, but they still use this data. It's been refuted many times over, but they keep going back to this. But one part of this data set basically shows that, you know, Asians test at a higher rate than white people do. So because the race realists are so committed to there being some sort of genetic structure that involves intelligence and race, which is nonsense. I mean, race, like most of these things that we identify are phenotypical, meaning they're visual, it's superficial, it has nothing to do with your genetic structure. So I mean, again, I'm not trying to get into a 20-minute conversation on this, but they're looking at, they're not saying every member of that community is that, but the data sets in general, the wide berth of them suggest this. So in order for them to be committed to this sort of bell curve ideology, they have to also accept that. So they find ways around finding ways to accept it and still fit it into their ideology, even though it's completely ridiculous and mutually exclusive. All right. So having said that, I hope that clarifies what I was trying to say there. All right, back to Sebastian Gorka.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I forgot where we were. The girlfriend, who, I mean, never mind, it's vile. Even if she couldn't, whatever, she identified the wrong person according to police.
Right.
And so basically, there's a whole bunch of stories, literally like that morning or that evening before he talked. About, because I literally checked it out. It was just like, this is horse. I mean, like, I have heard of, you have, certain people who are abolitionists when it comes to police who just like, oh, they get their car broken into, they're not reporting it, they're not identifying, they're not whatever. But like, this is absurd. I mean, like, there's no way. So she's just identified the wrong person, which is, totally understandable considering the amount of trauma that she's through and thing. And so there was articles about basically the police complaining about how it's going to be tough for them to, tougher to prosecute. Never mind, they have video of it, and I think they'll do it. It's it's New York. They'll figure out a way. Considering it was seen pretty quickly that they found the guy too. So so yeah. So I mean, like, it's just
why is Sebastian Gorka even bringing this up? This seems like a weird thing.
I mean, his entire most of the speech was basically in different ways about how the left is so they're the crazy ones. They're the people who are so completely unhinged from reality that we can't basically deal with them, and that, like, if you let them rule, if you let them win, then they're gonna, basically murderers will be free. I mean, like, you hear it all the time. I mean, it's like, so anytime there's a conversation about like bail or anything like that, never mind, a lot of them are now complaining about bail and complaining about the police state now that they're actually being prosecuted for some of their crimes during January 6th. It is hilarious if it wasn't so sad to have when you have conversations with people that like have vigils at the J6 jail in DC, and talking about, like, yeah, it would have been great if like we could talk about prison reform, 20 years ago, but I guess we can't now. So, but yeah. And also never mind the fact that also this BS about Democrat cities, which it's the Democratic Party. There's no Democrat party. I hate when they do that. But anyway, that's like my weird, like, I start twitching.
There's arguments internally inside the Democratic Party, like to say that this group is monolithic is not accurate.
But the idea, no, it's talking about literally the term Democrat Party when they talk about it. Anyway, it's a weird Republican thing that they do to not use the word Democratic Party. But the fact that like Democratic cities are not the same. I mean, like, literally all of the biggest city. I mean, most major cities are Democratic strongholds, if you want to call them that. And they're all mostly, like, New York City is one of the safest places to be. It's way more safe than Republican cities and Republican states ever could imagine. It's just the population is high. So you end up hearing, that, oh, it's a terrible, dangerous place. And it's like, no, it's not.
Per capita, it's less crime than something. I got what you're saying. Let's play the second Sebastian Gorka clip. So, but I do want to point out, it's really interesting that he's saying Antifa is a cult, but he's actually literally talking to cult.
I know, right? I kind of giggled at that. Yeah, I was just like,
the irony.
Maybe don't use the C word. Don't use the C word.
Maybe don't do it. Don't do it. Stop. All right, let's play the next one.
Where's politics really? In your local village, town, city, county. That's America. That's where America is. So you've got to ask yourself, why does a billionaire who broke the Bank of England, a guy who, and don't take my word for it, watch the video where he actually admits it, as a Jewish kid, he helped the Nazis confiscate valuables from Jews in Budapest. Soros actually, he laughed about it in an interview that's pretty hard to find now. It's weird how they've scrubbed it from the internet. He admitted to collaborating in the confiscation of Jewish wealth in Budapest for the Nazis. Why does this guy spend the last 20, 30 years pumping his money into local elections, funding prosecutors like Alvin Bragg in New York? Why? Because he gets it. If I can put crazies like me in positions of power locally, we've got it. We own the country.
I just like my skin's on fire right now. This is nothing but lie after lie after lie that's just promoting more anti-Semitic tropes. And it's not the first time Sebastian Gorka has done this. He keeps perpetuating this myth. No, George Soros didn't steal from other Jews. He's a Holocaust survivor. What are your thoughts
He's also
on that?
15. I mean, also he's 15 years old. Like,
I know,
it's,
right?
It's
yeah, wait.
like, and like, I mean, it's wild considering like he
you
goes
make a
after,
valid
like,
point there, right?
Because he's also making the notes. It's like, why is this foreigner with his accent,
Right.
which I can't get it.
But he's a white foreigner.
Like, he also should note NBC News article. Sebastian Gorka made Nazi linked Vitesse Rend proud by wearing its medal that he wore at the inaugural ball. Like, he has connections to a World War II Nazi group.
That's
and
right.
so it's like, it's weird. I mean, it's definitely, it's, you know, like what most of the right does is deflect.
Didn't he have to resign from some position for that reason when that was outed?
My remembrance is that he couldn't get he was one of the people that couldn't get a security clearance. I don't think that was the reason.
Oh, in the Trump administration.
Yeah,
I was thinking further back, but yes. Okay.
Yeah. No, so I mean, it's hilarious that he's done that he harps on this issue, because I mean, like, I don't know if I had connections to historic Nazi groups, actual groups.
Historic. Meanwhile, he's accusing a Holocaust survivor of stealing from his fellow Jewish. I just, it's so disgusting. Honestly, it's just like,
it's so boring. I mean, to me, it's like almost to the point where it's just like, you know, like it's the same people that, like, when we talk about the Kochs, like, mind you, I have a film coming out about the Koch brothers from stealing from natives in Oklahoma in the 80s and 90s. But it's just like, there are other billionaires. And also, as a person who's worked on what he'd call the left for, you know, almost 20 years, I've never gotten a Soros check.
I haven't either, but it's so wild to me that they always do this sort of trope about Jews own the media, Jews this, Jews that. I mean, when if you look at per capita who owns media companies, it's not mainly Jewish folks, it's white men. If you look at banksters that are mainly responsible for tanking our economy, it's not all Jewish folks, it's a lot of white men. But they cherry pick these individuals out and hold them up as the example and say, see, because they're being driven by their own biases and they can't admit that it's white men that are doing this.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's why Alex Jones, that's why all these guys, they end up finding the one Jewish guy in an organization, like pull him out and be like, that's the guy. You know,
he's if you all actually the strings. It's fucked up. But this stuff is becoming more and more normalized, and it's kind of frightening, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the Koch, I mean, it's weird that the Soros thing, it's not weird, I should say, but it's like, because I mean, like, I remember following people like Alex Jones like more than a decade ago, and like they would talk about Soros and whatever, and just like whatever. And then once, you know, Trump and, you know, I mean, you've had, you know, mainstream political Republican candidates talk about Soros, even outside of the whole DA thing, which is a really big conspiracy that they really love. We got another person later on that talks about the money in the Pennsylvania DA races, but like, it is a weird that it's just become a pass off, like you can use to be like Soros. And it's like, that heavy wink, you know, to a small segment of your supporters, or a large segment, and for a lot of people of your supporters who, you know what that means. They know you don't have to say the Jewish bill.
No, it's a dog whistle. I think it's pretty clear at this point that that's exactly what it is. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is, so this is number 4. If we can put this up. I think this is, no, wait, that's the one we just watched, or is this a different one? No. That's the same one? Oh, yeah, there we go. No, it's the one after that. That's the Proud Boys.
They had this like little pug.
The friends of the, hang on. Okay, so the friends of the NRA, what's the difference here between these folks? Like, is this part of the Proud Boy tent?
The friends of the NRA were, they put on a gun auction. I think they were a separate tent. They might have been just next to them.
Right. I'm looking for the photo of that. And I think, do we have a photo of that? Or is it just Proud Boys? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. I think these are all Proud Boys as I'm scrolling. All right. Tell us about the friends of the NRA. We don't need a photo, but what was their relationship?
It must have. Oh no, it's after if you scroll down, it's after the mug photo. There's the friends of the NRA they held a gun. There you go.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah, they sold about over a dozen guns, and they were sadly, because there wasn't a lot of people in the room, they were sadly going for they sold a Tommy gun for $650. So
they're auctioning off these guns, and this is to support the quote unquote church, the cult, whatever.
No, it's to support the NRA, to support the friends of the NRA.
As if the NRA needs more financial support, for real?
Yeah. And so of any organization that needs money. Actually, you know what? Actually, right now, that is actually true. They probably do need some money. Because they have not been doing well lately. The poor people. But they Wayne LaPierre is going to have to cut back on his $1,000
his rich mansions or whatever.
But at his yacht trips and things like that. But they sold a whole bunch of guns, which is just a wild experience of them showing it. They would bring these, they brought a Tommy gun around and showed it to the people. It's just one of those I've had different members of my family that have guns. I personally don't own one. My uncle co-founded the Second Amendment Foundation. Guns are not a thing that I'm that scared of, but it is a weird experience. They're they literally had a great auctioneer that was doing the fast talk and everything like that. But it was really kind of sad because they kept having to ask people, can you go just a little bit higher, go another $50 so that we can at least break even on selling this gun. There's one guy in the front row that bought 3 guns, and he probably just could go right away and flip them and probably could make a couple $1,000 because they were going, like I said, the Tommy gun. My colleague and I, Ford Fisher, a friend of mine, a great videographer, you were just kind of looking at each other
should we buy one?
Because not only he's more of a gun guy than me, but I was just we could flip this for
that's crazy. I mean, a Tommy gun, I would think so. A Tommy gun, that's pretty old. Yeah. One of the guns was Charleston Heston's from Cold Dead Hands.
It had it etched into the grip. I think actually two handguns had it etched into the.
And he was the ex NRA president,
He was the former president. He threatened to punch my uncle at one point. They were disagreeing on gun policy. They were both pro Second Amendment people, but they were disagreeing on gun policy. So it was a very, very amusing thing. Wayne LaPierre still dislikes. My uncle's passed away, but still is not a big fan of him. So, but yeah. I say that in full disclosure because the time that I spoke the last time when I went there in 2 years ago, my uncle's co-founder Alan Gottlieb was speaking there. So it's. They are well connected. The Second Amendment Foundation and this group is actually connected. My uncle was not in that world.
I mean, they worship guns, so that goes without saying. I want to talk about, obviously, stolen election conspiracies continue to be rife among the right. There's a solid group of people that just cannot wrap their head around the fact that Trump lost the election, even though it's pretty clear that he did. Full disclosure, he did.
That's a lot of them still think he's president, so.
Right.
Didn't just not lose, but still is he can just be installed any moment. So yeah.
Right. Also, can I mention today's Friday the 13th? So this is kind of
Appropriate. Yeah.
appropriate, right? Also, folks, if you haven't yet, please like and share the live stream so we can get more viewers. And we are definitely taking your super chats since we're live today. So if you have questions for Zach, feel free to drop in any questions into the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the show. So Tony Shoup from Audit the Vote PA, of course. What was the story there? I think this is number 8 on our list of videos.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest question that I get now, though, is what do we do? What can we do now? Tony, can 2024, is there any chance we're going to have a fair election in 2024? And if so, what can we do? And my answer is this. We're launching through Audit the Vote a new campaign. It's going to be called What Can We Do? And I personally think where we are headed to fix the elections is civil disobedience. I don't think anybody's going to fix it for us. I think we're going to have to take them back ourselves.
So, yeah, I mean, they're committed to this belief. You could show them the recounts, the paper ballots. You can show them Trump administration officials admitting that they know that Trump lost the all of it. You can show them all of that, but they're still refusing to believe this stuff, which causes concern, obviously, for the reason that if they still don't buy that he lost the last one, if he loses again in 2024, if he ends up being the GOP candidate, where does that leave the country? I mean, are they going to stage a J6-2? Like, what's going to happen there?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that, I mean, if somebody look at if I'm trying to think of a liberal, if ACLU talks about, doing civil disobedience, I'm not incredibly worried about what may turn out, how that may turn out. I am worried when you talk to a group of people that own firearms. Many of the people in the room were in DC on January 6th. And so it's not, I mean, actually Pastor Moon was at January 6th. He didn't go in the building or anything like that.
Are you sure?
There. Yes. Yes, there's actually video. He doesn't like to talk about it. Even though he
are you sure he didn't go into the building?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we're pretty certain. We're pretty certain about it. I think also it would have been like the Capitol investigate those people on Twitter that find
sedition hunters,
they find people from Charlottesville that were there using my photos. It's completely insane. Insane good. But what they do. But what worries me is that what their version of civil disobedience is and what that turns into, because they don't understand, I mean, they have a hard time understanding that if you do something illegal and if that's sitting in the street peacefully or breaking into the Capitol, which are two very different things, that you're going to get arrested for it. You have consequences. That's a thing that happens in America to the left all the time. They just, for some reason, refuse to recognize that, 100 people get arrested at any given protest at any given time, any protest that happens. Usually there's at least a couple people arrested just for looking at a cop the wrong way. And that never happens at any of the right-wing rallies that you've had or the anti-vax rallies or anything like that. It's wild to think that most of those rallies were in a lot of ways illegal. And I went to tons of them, and I don't remember anyone ever getting arrested. Very
few. And I could say without equivocation, if January 6th had been done by BLM or Antifa, they would have been using live ammunition. People would be dead. Yeah.
I mean, let's
not just 2 people, 60 people. So no, I mean, I think a lot of the times though, the obvious reason behind that is that there was definitely a lot of law enforcement officers, local sheriffs, whatnot, that were Trump supporters. So they had a bias towards not arresting those folks for what they were doing. I mean, it took forever for them to try to figure out how to have 2 police lines, one facing BLM, Antifa, one facing Trump. If they were having protests and counter protests, it was generally always facing the left. And I'd be watching these guys behind the cops, like Proud Boys and whatnot, and they'd be throwing water bottles at the cops, and then the cops would turn around and shoot somebody in the counter protest because they always assume it's the left, and it's just are you kidding me right now? Turn around and notice.
I mean, you always say. I mean, something I always say, and I think I've said it on this show before too, is that you can see where the police alliances lie at any protest, and it's who they have their back to. And because they're not looking at them, and so you have plausible deniability when it comes to seeing anything. And then you also have, who do you trust more? You trust a violent hate gang that was participated in January 6th, or do you usually half at like Black Lives Matter protests or whatever, half of it was just like suburban moms that were there,
Right.
often with their kids. And it's like, which one do you trust? Obviously we see where it is.
But it's obvious too, because you and I are like, we see that, but when you're so ingrained in that culture and you don't see it, it's not obvious to you. And I think that's part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
I always like to look at the motivations for things to try to understand where these folks are coming from, because I think that's part of kind of fixing what's broken in our democracy right now. And one of the themes that you hear time and time again from these folks is they really do believe they're overthrowing the yoke of tyranny. They view themselves as the patriots, as the heroes. And they sort of want to ascribe our current democracy in this, and we're saying democracy. I understand that we have corporate interest problems and all. I'm not putting, I'm not belittling that.
It's a republic. Yeah. Don't you understand? Sorry.
I do understand. Republics are democracies by definition. I mean, but they don't. I've had that conversation with these guys a million times. But my point is that they want to compare overthrowing the yoke of the British Empire, the monarchy that truly was. Taking all your taxes, taking all your money and giving you nothing in return. And they want to compare that to what we have now. And the thing that they're pissed about is that their guy simply didn't win, even though in 4 years they're going to have another opportunity to run.
They were mildly inconvenienced by having to wear a mask when they went to the streets in Pennsylvania.
Exactly. So I'm just saying the magnitude of what reality is and what they think it is they're meh. But I don't think it matters to them, because they really truly are deeply invested in these beliefs. And that's what's motivating them. That's what's animating the conversation. And I think that's the problem. Now, having said that, there are folks that are kind of waking up to the reality of like, wait, what am I doing? Like, what? Gee, I'm out of my mind. Why was I thinking that? And they're coming back to planet normal. But a lot of them are becoming more radicalized. So the thing I'm noticing, and I don't know, Zach, if you notice this, like I was covering the Modesto straight pride. I'm going to call it straight white pride because that's what it was. We had, absolute literal neo-Nazis showing up with Hitler t-shirts and swastika armbands, the whole nine. And I went over to the quote unquote normal Trump supporters and like, you're okay with this? I'm giving you the opportunity to talk to me, to tell me you're not okay with this. I didn't really have a taker on that. But having said that, it was a much smaller group than what I've seen in the past. In the past, we would see crowds of, 200, 300 people there. This was a crowd of like 20. So do what you will with that. But I think what that tells me is that there's less of them, but they're just much more radicalized when it comes to, white supremacy ideas and whatnot.
Yeah. I would just say I have a continually pessimistic view on everything, because I keep getting proven true whenever I have that. I think it's a double combo of things. It's just like a lot of them have gotten tired of Trump because he's not the dream that they thought he was going to be.
Fair.
They will definitely show up.
Fair.
And also give it 6 months when like summer 2024 when things start really happening. God forbid, anything, especially once the trials, like when Trump is going to have like 6 trials going on at the same time. And like, he's just going to be going from place to place. Like he's going to be going from Atlanta to New York to DC to Atlanta, just riding, he may actually, maybe this might get him to support train travel because we could use it anyway. But that's
we could definitely use more
line from Atlanta to New York anyway. But,
and for folks that are interested in seeing the Modesto video, it is up here on Status Coup. We did. I actually went because this is how I am. You know me. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. I did go and talk to the neo-Nazis in not great length, but long enough period of time that.
I mean, it's kind of like, what do you believe? It's like, well, it's kind of summed up in this arm patch or this flag. So it's,
I mean,
that's why I don't call them
neo-Nazis.
They're just Nazis.
They're just Nazis.
There's nothing new about them.
There's nothing new about it. It's the same stuff. Yeah. One of them actually had a t-shirt that he told me he printed himself. It had a photo of Hitler on it.
Oh, they're doing home crafting now. That's nice. His little shut up. Like, what's the like Nazi version of Etsy? We joke, but it probably exists. But I mean, there used to be Patreon. Like that used to be
right.
Thing. So, but yeah,
Terrorgram. Yeah, no, I got you. I digress. Let's see. Let's get back to our clips.
I would like to say one more thing about
Yes.
Tony Schupp, which is something that like I think we focus a lot on, like the kind of the big national names and that sort of thing. She started out, I followed her in 2001 at one of her first rallies that she had in 2000, like early 2001. And she was a very uncomfortable speaker. She was just like, I'm just a mom, which she does in all of her, it's her kind of standard stump speech. I've heard her talk half a dozen times now, I think. And like she is, oh, I'm just a mom who didn't really follow politics. I leaned left, after college and, and everything like that. And now she's a fantastic speaker. And she went to this thing called Patriot Academy, where basically she learned biblical, like teaching the Constitution and Bible as a combo course kind of thing, and kind of it's biblical citizenship. And that actually is like way like she's that seems to be a lot more focused, and she actually does she teaches classes on that now, and it's kind of this weird like you buy a bunch of books and then you get to teach those classes. It's a pyramid scheme kind of thing going on.
Interesting.
But it's definitely it's a group that I'm looking into. There's been like a bit written about it already. But she, like her level that she went from like just I'm just a mom to she is a hardened speaker now that can like just react to whatever. And like that worries me. It's like when you have like dozens of these people across the country who are working on a local level, and they can they'll just like focus on something. Like she'll focus on a house race in outside of Harrisburg in Lancaster or something like that, and like harass the heck out of all of the election officials and do everything. And that's all you need, is that like that one person. I mean, like I always like when I gave talks about voter suppression back in 2008, and people would always ask at the end of my speech, it's like, well, what can we do? It's like seems or whatever. And I'm like, run for county clerk, run for whatever. And like these type of people are harassing the county clerks, the election officials, the low level people. Like we'll talk, I think we might get to another person who is actually in the middle of a libel lawsuit against a election official. But it's one of those things that like we, again, we like to focus on the big names and the ridiculous, like Rudy Giuliani's and stuff like that. But like these people, there's dozens of them. There's probably like 4 different groups in Arizona and all the key states, and they're working endlessly and they're funded. And I'm sure that she would say that she's not well funded, but she's better funded than I've ever been, been. As
there's a lot of dark money.
So
Peter Thiel,
but like
Coke,
it's definitely kind of a terrifying thing. And like the groups that she's working alongside, I mean, like the last conference, again, this is her second rally that she spoke at that had Proud Boys at it. And she has her fans. It's kind of that's one of the biggest things that worries me about all of this is, I mean, Sebastian Gorka's been ranting, doing his like craziness on his, for quite a while. He has his fan base and that's it. But like these people are like, they're literally knocking doors, and they're doing a lot of things that like not enough of us do. Right.
No, they're definitely motivated by their beliefs. So it's Leah Hoops.
I believe it's Hoops. Yeah. Yeah.
Now she's the one that's involved in the defamation lawsuit.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's play what her clip is number 9. Should we play that first and then we'll talk about her?
Sure.
There were these contractors that were coming into my county that were getting paid an exuberant amount of money to run our elections. And what they did was they set up 46% of our state's drop boxes in my county. Our district attorney, Frederick Jack Stolzheimer, was given $1 million by George Soros in 2019 so he can be installed right before the 2020 election. That man is a criminal. I'm just going to put it right out there. He is a criminal, just like Fannie Willis, just like every other district attorney across this country. They are criminals, period. He was installed in 2019. Why? Does anyone know why the district attorney is important for local elections? They are the first line of defense in election fraud. Period.
Okay, so a couple of things here. I want to point out some of the very specific language she's using. Installed. So this person won an election. They weren't installed. They won an election. But we're going to say installed because I don't like the outcome of this election. Ergo, they couldn't have possibly won. Right? That's the language we see over and over again.
Yeah.
And then
it's not Bush v. Gore. It's not like they were installed. Like Bush was installed. Right. It's like it's got a wild, but yeah, it's literally there's not.
I mean, there are definitely cases of borderline problems that we have. Nobody's disputing that. these guys take it to the extent where anything they don't like is election fraud. And there's really absolutely no actual physical evidence or support that any of these claims are true. And in fact, it's the opposite. If you do a recount of paper ballots and it comes out the same, what does that tell you? If you're refusing to believe the outcome of that, that's on you. But I mean, we've taken every precaution possible. And in fact, what's interesting about the state of Pennsylvania is they used to have they changed after the 2016 primary because they were, had considerations about that. And they brought back paper ballots so that if there was a problem, they could recount them. So there are states that are setting up systems to deal with that. And that had been happening way before Trump, right? So this is just stuff that's been going on in the country, but they're just pissed off because their guy lost. And I think that the detriment here is the election fraud claims have become so common now, so normalized, that anytime somebody loses that they want to win, they're just going to pull that out of the hat, and it doesn't matter what the actual facts of the matter are. This is very dangerous.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, there is one thing. I mean, like, I think about as somebody who's worked on voter suppression and covered voter suppression.
Yeah. Actual, real cases of it.
Actual, like, proven, like, we documented massively. We have legal experts. We have everybody come in.
So do a little shout out for your documentary with Greg Palast. We've had Greg on the show, obviously, too, to talk about it.
Go to gregpalast.com, PALAST, gregpalast.com. And it's going to be coming out, I believe, the 20th. But check it out. It's a doc about the Koch brothers and basically how they have been screwing over the Osage Indians. It basically goes kind of hand in hand.
This is a new one. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is a new one. Yeah. Sorry, that's a new one. The new one that we're having. It's a short film. And it basically kind of goes. It's produced by George DiCaprio. Leo's. And it kind of goes hand in hand. We talked to a lot of people who are actually in the DiCaprio Scorsese film that's coming out next week as well. And basically, like, it's insane how their stories kind of like overlap on the number of murders that happened at the turn of the century and now, and then in the 80s and 90s, how the Koch brothers basically stole Pennsylvania. Also Vigilante, which you can get on DVD.
Through the vote.
We're actually reworking it a little bit. So it's going to be kind of re-released next year. But the version that exists right now, I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's very good.
And that's actually, like, I actually don't like some of the documentaries that we've done. So that's actually, like, it's an honest thing. This is like something that it made my mom cry. And she very rarely watches anything I do.
It's a good documentary.
Yes, it is. Vigilante. It's you can get it also at gregpalast.com. But yeah.
All right, back to our regular programming. So what else? So what is this defamation lawsuit about? She's being she's in trouble with Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so she was part of if you remember, Rudy Giuliani after the election had it was 2020 in the election. She had in Gettysburg, there was that panel where they brought in a whole bunch of people. Doug Mastriano was there, and basically they just kind of spouted election conspiracies and defamed and slandered a bunch of election officials. She was in that panel. She spoke, and she's part of this, and she's part of a pretty big election lawsuit that Rudy Giuliani is one of the election officials in Pennsylvania brought. Thankfully, I'm actually really happy that a lot of people, these are actually finally bringing these cases, because like letting people like Alex Jones, letting people just like completely lie. We have no power as journalists over what, disinformation gets out there. Realistically, we can like fact check things, but like I can't stop Alex Jones from doing
Rudy or Alex from saying the things they're going to say. Yeah. 100%.
And so she's bringing a lawsuit, and then her speech, which like I don't think I can put online, because I worry like if the way that defamation works is if you rebroadcast something that defamation, you can also get hit with it. So I'm a little worried about putting it on there,
put it online
because she just re-slanders a whole bunch of people. And she's like, I don't care. But like her conspiracy like lines of things like that, like it's all like local Pennsylvania names that like Pennsylvania politics, no, I've covered quite a bit of Pennsylvania politics, and half the names that she mentioned I'm like I've heard once, or like I have never even heard of. But like, so it's not worth like playing or anything like that, but it's one of the more wild things I've ever heard, where it's just like she is just like, again, like Ford was standing next to me filming, Ford Fisher was standing next to me filming, and we're just like, it's like are we going to be part of this court case now? Because we have filmed, I mean, it was live streamed on the Ring of Fire, on Rod of Iron festival site. So I'm sure the lawyers are like,
yeah, really not smart of them, but here we are. But again, they feel like she doesn't believe she's wrong. Like, again, you can present every kind of fact-based thing you can to show them that this is the reality, and they're just not going to listen. They're just very committed to this belief system. It's kind of wild. Then there was so the musical act that was Sean. Sean is the Reverend Bullet Head. So he did a rap thing. I think we have video of that. Yes. Number 10,
I think we just have still like if you give me a minute, I can pull up from
there we go.
Rumble.
Oh,
like, we have stills. my audio is like completely and totally blown out from it because the speaker system wasn't fantastic.
Well, okay.
But,
that's always fun. So that's him doing his rap right there. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Right. What kind of lyrics did he have?
I mean, they were some of the more like basically kind of like.
Is that him being? Is that him?
No.
It's
one of his followers was doing stage diving. No, I don't think that he would be that close to his peoples.
Absolutely hilarious. All right, so that was day one. Now we're moving on to day two. So this is Pastor Shamoun's main speech, headline speech was on day two, right? So he's again talking about communism and because they're grounded in anti-communism rhetoric. So was the Moonies back in the 70s. So that's been a through line with all of that. So let's go ahead and play part of the speech, and then we'll talk about that.
The Communist Party under Mao in China funded the destruction of traditional marriage through bars and strip clubs funded by the state. In Germany, the Nazis created the first homosexual rights organization and groomed soldiers into abominable homosexual practices. In America, the communist forces funded sexual liberation, LGBTQ rights, and drag queen shows in public schools, and a multi-billion-dollar gender mutilation industry, openly promoting pedophiles and pedophilia as mapped, as well as pushing pedophile sex scenes on HBO. This is intended to destroy the American Christian family, marriage, and the young people's morals, and a worldview where God, not self, is at the center of the universe. There is a reason why the satanic ideology of Marxism has created socialist and communist regimes all over the world that has used as their primary blackmail apparatus Jeff Epstein-like sex trafficking rings, providing young girls and boys to the political elite, entrapping them, coercing these government officials to aid in the centralization of power to the blackmailers or lose their reputations and lives. Once the political elite are captured, they are used to create unconstitutional laws, targeting all their opposition, eventually making legal precedents for genocide and demo.
Okay, there's only so much of that you can take. I want to address one of the first thing he says, and then we'll get your feedback on this. What the fuck is he smoking, like promoting this myth that the Nazis were homosexual soldiers and they created the first homosexual? The opposite is true. I know that this is an old conspiracy theory. It's been around a long time. But it was never really mainstreamed. But recently, in the last year and a half, you've seen a lot of the Christian right try to pull this one up and throw it out there and see if it sticks. It's just simply not true. And in fact, Nazi propaganda was very much anti-homosexuals. It was Hitler was very homophobic. You know, if they could figure a way to kill off all the gay folks, they would, because that was immoral and that was against the Nazi code. So, and it would undermine, further creation of German white babies, whatnot. I mean, and that's still true today with a lot of Nazis, neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call them. So it's wild that he actually said that. I think the motivation for him and others saying this at this point is they want to distance themselves from this idea that they have any, connection to neo-Nazis in the country and white supremacy. But come on, man, like that's ridiculous.
There's a book which the name I won't mention, so that people can't even whatever. But there's a book that like basically makes up this entire myth that's been around for I think it came out 20 years ago at least. Kind of like making up this whole story about how a lot of the original Nazis were like the core true, were gay, like closet gay, and that like Hitler was okay with it. Never mind, he had the one person who was
Never
vaguely
mind.
out murdered. I mean, like
never mind that he was putting gay folks into concentration camps
Yeah.
as well. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's absolutely revisionism of an epic,
Yeah.
horrific proportion. It's just simply not true. And to hear this guy spout that while wearing a bullet crown and holding a gun is really wow, just something else.
Yeah.
Some of the other things he's talking about obviously are also conspiracy theories. Again, all of this stuff is verifiably false, but you see them repeated as verbatim as it's just factual. And then the next guy hears it in the cult, and then he tells the next guy. And this is how
Yeah.
these things spread and grow wings and, you know, get out there into the universe. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, he's talking to, it's interesting being one of the more interesting things about covering this world is that you enter a completely and totally different fact space. I won't say they're fact free because to them, these are the facts. Like this
Right.
is factual information. But you enter, especially when it's a cult leader and you have everybody in the room on the
Right.
same line. It's not even CPAC where it's like you have, okay, you got certain people and then you got the far right and maybe there's a Groyper somewhere in the crowd. So there's like a different varying of like of the far right, but this is like this was a single bubble within that tent of what disinformation that they consume and what they believe. And so it's fascinating to listen to it and like kind of look at the crowd and see what they're responding to and see what they very clearly know, because you get the knowing nod versus the I didn't know that kind of response. And everything that happens in that bubble, it's like 2 years covering it, and it's it's 8 hours a day, and like I end up spending most of my time in there because the speakers are just, you never know what they're going to spout off or go off the thing, go off their script or whatever, even though their script is completely and totally off the wall to begin with. But it's fascinating to experience that, because like on the left, I've never been in a room where you can have a room of people who are friends their entire life, went to the same school, organization, run in the same organizations, and they will nearly get into a fist fight over, no, this is the version of my support of Palestine that I have, and I will.
And it's 2 inches away from yours, but I will fight you over it.
Yeah, it's exactly. Right. We 100% everyone else in the world, we agree. But like to you and me, we might as well be sworn enemies. And I've lost friends that way, like, and just like weird levels of like, whether it be abolition or, whether it be, police abolition or whatever. And it's just like, and so it's like, it's just fascinating to watch that, where it's just like, it's a whole, just everything that they say is factual. And if it's somebody that's on stage, but then also that can shift from day to day. When Jack Pacific says his version of this same story or the George Soros thing, that also is factually true.
Right.
And so
Jack was there too, right? I think.
Yeah. Ironically, 2 people who have me blocked on Twitter. But Sebastian Gorka and Jack Pacific both have me blocked on Twitter for some reason. I don't remember why.
To follow me on Twitter, and I soft blocked him immediately.
To Sebastian Gorka's Mustang. He has like a Mustang that like has like some ridiculous license plate. But yeah.
All right, so Jack is, for folks that don't know who he is, he's a Trump guy. He tried to sell himself as a journalist for like 2 seconds. That didn't work out well because he got squarely criticized for his ridiculousness. But he was here recently in Los Angeles at this traditional Catholic thing that happened at Dodger Stadium, where they were against Pride Night, saying some really horrific things. Like, he says really awful stuff. He is, if you're not familiar with his past history, Pizzagate was something that he promoted. I think it took off actually because of him. Yeah. He tried to do this documentary on Antifa that was just fucking absurd, for lack of pardon me, but that's just what it is. It's just not even close to being factual. So that's part of, you get where he's coming from. Let's go ahead and play. That's clip number 13, and then we'll talk a little bit about what he's saying here.
When Hillary Clinton goes on national television and says that we need deprogramming centers for MAGA extremists. Hillary Clinton says that. I think it's time we start taking them seriously. I think it's time we start taking them at their word. When you have someone who was the standard bearer of the Democrat Party, one of the most powerful politicians in America, calling for deprogramming centers. Yeah, we know what those are called. Those are called internment camps, okay? That's what that is. They're called gulags. Go ask the Uyghurs in China about that. Go ask the Japanese how they were treated during World War II about those camps, all right? We've done that before, okay? It's happened. Now we're being told that it's gonna be done domestically against our own population. And keep in mind that these days, because of technology, they don't even need to take you anywhere, all right? They can force you to be locked in your own home. You say, well, they're not gonna force me to be locked in my own home. Oh, really? They didn't just do that for a whole year and a half? Try to lock you in your own home? Try to make you stay there? Try to turn your own technology against you, censor you on everything, take away your bank accounts, take away your ability to function in modern society? Guess what? They can, and they will, and they are doing these things.
I could say is like, if these people ever had to, like Jack, his family was, you know, both Sebastian and Gorka and Pazopic were like, their family were from, you know, for a communist in the area and that sort of thing, and so they use that continually as their entire thing. Right. Never mind the, you know, but if they ever had to like experience anything of like that they describe, like the idea that COVID, like I was a journalist or is a journalist, and I covered COVID around and covered the Black Lives Matter protests. I never stopped traveling. The only thing I had to do is wear a mask. That's the only thing I had to do. And I didn't have to do that when I was driving. I just had to do it the one time that, you know, a couple times on a trip. Like I drove across the country. I did like probably like 3,000 miles. I flew to Minneapolis to cover protests and like stayed in hotels. Didn't have to wear a mask in my hotel. Like honestly, probably didn't even have to wear a mask in the hotel, like when in the lobby based on the one that I went to. But it was like the idea that this is like some level of persecution, and they compare it to whether it be RF Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
literally comparing it to Anne Frank. At least Anne Frank could hide. At least that people could cross the border to Switzerland. And I'm like,
Robert Kennedy is a lunatic.
All you had to do is live in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania,
Right.
and you could live your entire life perfectly fine, or upstate New York where I live.
It's all nonsense. Exactly. We never had a total lockdown in this country. Nobody's sending you guys to gulags. And here's the other thing. Like, I love when they say like Hillary Clinton is the standard bearer of the Democratic Party. This is actually so far from the truth. It's not even funny. If that had been the case, she probably would have won the election. The reality is half of the Democratic base does not like neoliberal politics that Hillary Clinton represents. That's just reality. So, but again, she's a convenient boogeyman for all of these guys. Never mind that half the left doesn't like her either, right? It's just, you know, it reminds me of like when you would be at these protests and the counter protesters, one side would say, you know, fuck Biden, fuck Trump, and then fuck Biden. And then they would respond to like, yeah, fuck Biden too. We don't care. Like,
you guys don't realize well, I mean, this like, you know, anytime that like all these people think that Biden's a communist or a socialist or whatever, and
which is ridiculous.
I wish. Come on. He didn't even push through the student loan. He's such a dictator that he didn't even push through the student loan thing.
None of these. The reality of most of the Democratic Party isn't what these guys paint them out to be. It's just ridiculous to me. Most of their governing comes from the center right, to be frank. Very much pro business, pro corporation, but that doesn't stop them from making these ridiculous claims. Also, I thought it was really strange about the go ask the Japanese how they were treated during World War II, which is atrocious. I don't think you're going to get any arguments from anybody on the left that the Japanese internment camps weren't disgusting and vile and reparations are owed or what, you know, I mean, that's just, I don't think that's crazy to think that the people on the left would say, yeah, that was bad. But notice now he's saying, but now they're coming for our people, and now we're going to have it here domestically. I'm sorry, bro, that the Japanese ones were also domestic. Those were Americans. That's the point.
America 1940 was America. It also was like the best time period that you think that America was the greatest was the time period that we interned American citizens. And you say that with an American flag standing behind you. It's really wild.
It's wild. I mean, he's othering the Japanese victims of this.
Who, by the way, like, half the crowd at that point was Japanese.
I know. First, he's holding this up as like this atrocious thing, and then he kind of sort of others them because he can't help himself. That's very much who Jack is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so building on the genocide talk, he, like other speakers, talked about the great replacement theory, which is like, yikes. Let's play clip number 14, because this is something I definitely want to talk about as well.
I've gone toe-to-toe with Antifa. I've gone toe-to-toe with any of them. I infiltrated Chaz. I'm not afraid of you, and I'll never be afraid of you. And here's why. Because the sword of St. Michael will defend me. I have the sword of St. Michael, and all of us must prepare to call upon the sword of St. Michael as we go into this next phase. And I don't want violence. I pray for peace. But I understand that peace comes with a price, and peace comes through a sword. Peace comes through defending your family, defending your way of life, defending your culture. And I am not going to let them take away ours. I'm not going to let them take away Western civilization or Christopher Columbus or this country or this Constitution. No, we have fought too hard, and we've gone through way too much to get to this point.
All right, couple things here. Sword of St. Michael. So this is something he actually made a point of during this Catholic thing too. I had no idea that Jack was a Catholic, but I'm assuming that he's a traditional Catholic, trad Catholic from many of his speeches. He's gone toe to toe with Antifa. I not to get into a
infiltrated Chaz is the one that like makes me crack up. First off, the idea that he could infiltrate Chaz and that everyone didn't know who exactly he was.
Exactly,
like,
is absurd. But you know, this harkens back to like 2020. I think that might have been 2020, maybe 2019. He had actually taken some footage that I shot at a Trump rally and posted it on his Twitter to his million MAGA followers. And he lied about what happened. He had edited out what preceded the section that he had cut out, right? And a fight had broken out at this rally, and he was basically saying that anti-fascists attack Trump supporters, these innocent Trump supporters, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, fuck you for stealing my footage. I'm filing a DMCA, and that's coming down, which I did, and it did come down. So we had a blank tweet after that. But in the meantime, he decided to like keep quote tweeting anything I said to him and like being really abusive. And then he got what's the blonde girl's name? I can't even think of her name right now. She used to be a Bernie. Nah, she used to be a Bernie supporter, and now she's like a white supremacist. Oh, Cassandra Fairbanks. Then she got in on the act, right? But you know what I ended up having to do, like I felt it was important to do this, was go and clip out what preceded this thing, because some Trump supporters had hit somebody first. They had other stuff had happened, right? So a fight did break out, right? But it was certainly not instigated by the leftists. So I went through and I clipped out these things and I put it on under his tweet. And I'm like, for anybody that actually cares about the truth, here it is. And so then after that, it became like a name calling personal attack thing, like, oh, you whore kind of shit, you know, because that's kind of where these guys come from. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm like, not even going to address
godly
that.
Language.
I'm like, address that stuff, like whatever. But I bring this up only because I think it highlights how guys like Jack, Andy, et cetera, operate, right? They're not committed to veracity. They're not committed to telling the truth. They're committed to telling a certain narrative that they want to twist, right? So their point is they want people to believe a certain thing, and they don't care how they get there, right? And they don't have a commitment to truth, which is really a needed component if you're a journalist. Like, you can't just go around lying. You can't. So I think that just highlights where these guys are coming from. So he says these things. He knows half the time that what he's saying isn't true, as does Andy but they simply don't care. Then he delves into this, like, we only have peace if we use a sword. We have to have war to have peace. Defending our culture, Western civilization. These are all like dog whistles, right? And mind you, you're right. He's speaking to a large Asian crowd mixed in there. So with no consideration for who his audience is, I think that's pretty disturbing.
Yeah. I mean, there's like something I actually didn't know, because I actually used to wear like a St. Michael medal as a Catholic. That there's like a lot of like I can't tell. I haven't like listened to enough of his speeches to know if like that's a regular beat for him. Because like there's a lot of like St. Michael and St. Michael's.
I don't know if it's a recent thing, or because I had never noticed it before, but this is the second time now I've heard that. So I'm like,
It has some like other white nationalists have used the reference before. Like I know the cross is definitely like it's like on ADL's like list of things. I mean, mind you, everything now it's like I hate to say it, like it's like what's a sign or like what is, but yeah, no, I the only thing I pictured when he said that is that he went to like the mall and bought like a sword and stuff on his wall, like Saint Michael. And sorry, I had that thought like when he said it, and I'm just like he's just like one of those sad like guys that had swords on his wall, like yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's very weird, but you know, this is very on brand for him, and I think in many ways, yeah, it does. I don't want violence. I'm prepared for violence, though. I mean, no, you do want violence. You and your ilk are here for violence.
I mean, that's the Oath Keepers like whole deal.
Right.
I mean, like that's like so much of the far right. It's like, oh, we don't commit violence, we react to it, and it's just like, well, you realize your presence is causing violence, but yeah.
So, and apparently that was breaking through to the audience. So there was a Q&A section that followed this. I want to play this clip that this is shocking to me. So one of the, somebody basically said that she was willing to be beheaded for the cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talk to the people that are still asleep or that are anti, like everyone here probably knows 95% of most of what you said, right? How do we talk to the people that aren't believers in the truth of what you've talked about today? And number two, tying into that, so if they're coming for us, which we know that, right? That's why we're at a gun, rod of iron, freedom fest, right? And we love our Jesus, we pray, we're on our knees. I talk to people all the time about Christ. I talk to people all the time about, you need to listen to the War Room Posse, you need to listen to this. What is the plan for us?
Sure.
To if they come for us, fine, take me. You can take me, do whatever. You can cut my head off. I'll take a bullet. My kids are grown. But seriously, people need to have a plan to unite against this bullshit, you know?
I agree on that. I certainly agree on that. And look, I know I was doing the little fire and brimstone up here, but maybe I should say the situation is actually getting better, okay, for us. I don't know if you guys saw this. Donald Trump is currently winning even left-wing polls in the state of Pennsylvania right now. Right now. Joe Biden is he's like a rotted piece of wood that you have to remove from your house because they know the whole thing's going to fall down, and that's why they want to replace him with Gavin Newsom. I say there's a Democrat shadow primary going on right now. So Hillary's trying really hard to get in. That's why she's talking about throwing us all in camps. But Gavin Newsom's clearly in the lead. And
No, bro. Hillary is definitely not trying to get in. She's not running a shadow campaign. That's crazy. And I think most of the left recognizes that Biden is a problem. That's that's not news. Mm-hmm. And it is likely that and I think that is worrisome that Trump is in the lead. He's not wrong on that. But my bigger concern is like, what do these guys actually believe that they are fighting? Like this woman's like, go ahead and behead me. I'll take a bullet for it because we can't have this stuff happening anymore. What is happening to you? Democracy is happening to you. Like nobody is threatening you. You're not going to the gulag. You're not. I mean, it's just insane to hear these people say this stuff. It's like, Jesus,
she very likely,
what?
yeah. I mean, like the weird thing about this conference as well, like to add the list of weird things, that's that she is likely lives in the area somewhere, like liberal cancel culture, America, whatever, like wokeism, no effect on her whatsoever. Like, I mean, there is just nothing. Like
the people fighting the fight right now are like the workers that are going on strike. I mean, these guys are really doing something to move the needle, right? And then you have folks like her saying this stuff, and you're like, what are you even talking about? Like, what world are you living in?
If you immerse yourself in this world so much, I mean, like, especially like I try not to do it. My mental health has been definitely suffering. And like, but if you like listen to the radio show, you listen to the, and that's all that you have on in the background. You have Gorka, you have Salem Broadcast Media telling you, or worse, all these local people. I mean, I didn't even include in one of these, I think I'm going to do a whole piece on this one broadcaster, Mel K. Oh my God. Like I have her conspiracy chart in this piece. She had literally a conspiracy chart. Like it reminded me of the Pepe Sylvia, like the thing from, from Always Sunny, that meme, like, and that's, and she, but like, if you listen to that constantly and you're like head nodding with, all these things, I'm like, I feel insane when I know all these things because I have to know them and I have to study them so that like when I talk to people, like, but like, I don't, you live in a world where everyone's out to give you. I mean, like you listen to Alex Jones and, 3 hours a day or whatever his broadcasting is. And he's constantly telling you they're coming to get you. They're coming to kill you. They're coming to put you in camps. They're coming to do this. Of course you're going to own a gun. Of course you're going to start a prepper basement. Of course you're going to do all these things. And of course you're going to strike out. Like January 6th, to me was like a no shit Sherlock situation that was going to happen because you listen to this whole buildup, but this is your last stand. That was your last moment. You got to save your king. You got to save Trump. And of course you're going to break down the the walls of the doors of the Capitol. And so like, it's like her beheading. The beheading comment was why I pulled this clip in particular because it was it's a very particular thing.
And let me ask you this, Zach, because I find this is often true. I often will, when I'm talking to these folks, I'm like, please, I want to understand you. I truly want to understand you. Please explain to me where you're being so deeply victimized that you're willing to be beheaded. I need to know specific things that are happening to you that would warrant that. And every time I ask these individuals that stuff, they don't have an answer for me, or they say they don't want to talk about it, or it's just there's reasons. And it's like, no, you need to tell me what these reasons are. I need to understand this because this is very extreme and it just doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, it's this entire like vibe. I mean, basically it's like, it's kind of sad that it's like, it comes down to that, is that when they do, if anybody actually does describe like in any, no words or whatever, why they feel like they're so, it's one of two things, is that either they got a black neighbor now for the first time in their lives, or they, the Hispanic guy that works at the grocery store gave him a side eye.
So it's just racism driving
whatever. But like, or it's also just like, again, like you just immerse yourself in this world. So you see everything as, I mean, like the left taught or the right.
Zach, can I say this, interject right now? Because that really irritates me. So if that's the reason, if that's the big thing that's happening to you, guess what? You're not the victim. You're victimizing somebody else. You're the bad guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're the constant. I mean, like they talk.
I mean, if you're being infringed on as a white person because somebody that is another color moved next to you, like you're not the fucking victim. You're the bad guy. I hate to break it to you. And maybe they know that and they don't want to hear it.
I mean, they probably don't. I mean, like, not to defend these people, but like, I would doubt that in a million years that if the fact that like, oh, they now have like, there's 5% population. I mean, like the great replacement theory is basically the greatest victim, like cultural change, like things are just changing because people.
Well, I don't know. Interracial marriage happens. Ooh, scary.
I mean, there's still that's still somehow a problem for a lot of people. I mean, like it's wild how much. But it's I mean,
it's
they
sad.
are,
if all of the boots that are on American workers oppressing you, this is not one of them. All right. Yeah. This is definitely not one of them.
Again, I mean, this is a sad thing where it's just like, I mean, all of this exists to shift the blame and shift the thing. There's this fantastic book I always recommend people read called White Trash. And it talks about how the history of America is basically shifting the blame to the other.
Right.
And so that basically
instead of facing up to your corporate overlords that are, extracting wealth by the millions from the rest of the economy. Yeah. Although I do think the majority of Americans realize that that's what's happening. That's why we're seeing this great awakening in labor.
Well, but this is why this is why you have to add the Soros conspiracy. This is why BlackRock has been this insane. Look I agree with them. Like what the hell? Like especially somebody
BlackRock sucks, but it's not a Jewish conspiracy that they
somebody who works in journalism and the idea that BlackRock is like supporting the left and like all this thing that like everybody at CPAC was harping on that this past year.
Wait, the BlackRock is supporting the left? Are they out of their minds?
That's the thing is that BlackRock is like a leftist organization that like I'm trying to remember the words, but it's just like it was like listening to him like what? Like
I have not had anyone say that to me. I would just burst out into absolute laughter. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean, the left is is protesting BlackRock. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's play our last clip because, God bless America.
Every year they look to me to do something incendiary before the bonfire, light things up just a little bit. Were the Japanese choir, were they amazing? Praise God. I read a good book once, and it said this in there, that God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them.
That's right.
Then God blessed them. What does Pastor George have in his hand? Well, let me tell you what's in my hand. I rented an apartment out. I had to evict a tenant back in January. And I was kind of wondering why everybody was sick in my house for so long. There were so many problems going on. And I finally got into that apartment, and guess what I found? Besides a bunch of garbage and junk. She had been practicing every manner of witchcraft under the sun, under my roof. And in there, hanging proudly on the wall in the witch's den was this. I'll bet you never thought you'd see this at the Rod of Iron Festival. You know what this is? This is the pansexual pride flag. This means that you like boys.
Yeah. So later on, they set it on fire. The
Is that what was
second king-
burning in the bonfire? What was?
Yeah,
the...
that's what not started it, but like that was the thing that they threw it in there and they burned it. And so that was the ending of the whole day. And then they stood in the cold at like 8 o'clock on a Sunday and quietly sang. It was an experience. I'll say that. Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre. All right. If you don't have, do you have any parting words on that before we move into right-wing insanity roundup? Or I think we pretty much covered everything, right?
Yeah, no. I would definitely check out Bucks County, buckscountybeacon.com. I've done a bunch of stories. I covered Moms
We'll
for
drop
Liberty
a
for
link
them.
We'll add a link to the intro of the video so people can go check out your writing there. Good reporting. All right. So now it's time for right-wing insanity roundup. I haven't done one of these in a few weeks. So I picked three because I think these are two situations, multiple videos. Obviously, the first one is Trump. We have a disintegrating nightmare happening in Israel and Palestine right now. I don't want to get into that. That is another 3-hour conversation I'm going to table for now. But I did want to play this video of Trump having this bizarre meltdown yesterday over Hezbollah that I'm not really clear on what his point is, quite frankly. But let's play this and talk about it.
And they said, gee, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack from the north because that's the most vulnerable spot. I said, wait a minute. Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it. I said that President Xi of China, 1.4 billion people, he controls it with an iron fist. I said, he's a very smart man. They killed me the next day. I said he was smart. What am I going to say? But Hezbollah, they're very smart. And they have a national defense minister or somebody saying, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack us from the north. So the following morning they attacked. They might not have been doing it, but if you listen to this jerk, you would attack from the north because he said that's our weak spot. Whoever heard of officials saying on television that they hope the enemy doesn't attack in a certain area? Now, unless it's a con job, But you know what a con job is? You're waiting there ready. You want them if you want them, but they weren't ready. They weren't ready. You know, say what you want. Israel was not ready. This was a big surprise. This was a terrible thing that happened. They weren't ready.
I don't know what to do with this for so many reasons. So Hezbollah is first of all, they're Lebanese. This is a Lebanese terrorist organization.
Yeah.
They're not in Gaza, they're in Lebanon. So of course they would attack from the north if they did attack from the north.
Yeah.
What is he fucking talking about?
I think you're immediately giving him too much credit for the fact that he knows geography of the Middle East.
Is he confusing Hezbollah with Hamas? Like
yes.
what's
I mean,
happening?
like, I'm sure that he had it. I mean, this is like listening to his, especially his like, because his speeches just don't seem to be going as well. Like based on the like little bit that I've watched of his rallies, is that he's going off the cuff quite a bit more and trying to talk about things that are going on, and that is not his strong point. Is like you got to wholly make the way that he works is he wholly makes up the thing that he's talking about it at like personal grievances. But it's, you know, again, it's all about just figuring out a way to make the Israel-Gaza crisis about Trump.
Also, how would it make them very smart if somebody says, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack us from the north?
Yeah.
The reason the defense minister would say that is because that's where they are located, not because they think Hezbollah is very smart.
Well, it would be like, I hope Hezbollah doesn't attack us from the south. It'd be very weird.
It would be very weird. Like Hezbollah is going to make a track all the way down into Egypt and come up. Like it just, this was just such a bizarre meltdown that I was like, what's happening here? Like, anyway, all right. Enough of that. I did want to share that. Okay, so I want to talk about the next one is the far-right plan to seize control of the administrative state. I want to play this clip for a couple of reasons. This is America First. America First, for folks that don't know, this is a where do we describe this? It's America First originally came out of like the World War II period of time, and they were definitely associated with some of the pro-Hitler movement here in the United States way back during World War II. And they've been, you know, rearing their ugly head again, mainly supported by Groypers, Nick Fuentes kind of groups. So, you know, America First is exactly what that. They're very neo-nationalist. A lot of Christian nationalists adhere to this movement, and also a lot of white supremacists. But I want to play this clip because it kind of highlights a couple of things in which where you can see like sometimes the left has the same criticism as the right does of government issues, which is interesting. But then they tear off into these like crazy authoritarian kind of responses. So let's play this clip and talk about it.
Make no mistake, these operational shortcomings speak to our virtues as America First conservatives. An ordinary conservative won't helm a welfare state boondoggle operation because he is offended by the squandering of tax dollars and because he or she is opposed on principle to the welfare state. But the self-inflicted prohibition does not extend in both directions. An ordinary leftist, by contrast, has no problem joining and leading an organization with conservative ends. That's because he understands, if only instinctually, that he can subvert it, he can hinder it, or better yet, turn it fundamentally toward progressive and leftist ends. This mechanism unfolds time and again, and always to the left's advantage, and always well outside the vision of the American founders and their understanding of civic equality and self-governance. But conservative candidacies are starting to figure out that we too can organize. We too can engage legal methods of ballot harvesting. We too are realizing that we can leverage a legal regime meant for enforcing inequality to advance the protection of the left's own disfavored classes. Most important, and again, the reason we're here today, is America First conservatives had figured out that we too can seize control of the administrative state and use it while also dismantling it for the proper ends of government and, most importantly, for our people. All this really is revolutionary, and I don't use that word lightly. What we are doing is ideologically revolutionary. An America First takeover of the administrative state, operationally revolutionary, an America First confrontation against anti-conservative institutions, and strategically revolutionary, seizing control of a century of labor on behalf of the American people.
I stopped there for a reason. Seizing control of labor on behalf of the American people. Like, that's quite a statement when you think about it. A couple of things here. She makes this point about talking about how leftists have no problem joining conservative groups because then they can pull the conservative groups to the left. When does that happen?
I mean, I think this is Donald Trump's think tank. This is American First Policy Institute. And they have such great people as Larry Kudlow and Chad Wolf, and it's basically, oh yeah, I forgot, the chair of the board is Linda McMahon, of WWE fame, and so a bunch of people that really know how to work things. A guy that got booted out of government really quickly, another guy that got booted out of, but anyway,
I mean, Larry Kudlow, I mean, he's like the poster child for the plutonomy. So
yeah. He also his credits include a CNBC show. I mean, that has to be this conspiracy with this idea when Republicans end up not supporting Donald Trump's completely sometimes insane, sometimes just fascist, sometimes insanely fascist policies that they push forward. I mean, this is me understanding, I think what she's saying is giving an excuse and going, oh, well, when the head of the Border Patrol doesn't want to, I don't know what, like put kids in camps or something like that, which is an unimaginable experience. Like that, he's a secret Democrat, and that's the thing.
Even though, never mind, the Democrats have towed the same line as Trump did on the border.
Any sort of right. And so.
Yeah, that's how it feels to me too. It's like they sort of sometimes touch on issues that the left is going to agree is a problem, but then they go into these horrific solutions, right? Yeah. Taking over labor. Yes, workers' rights need to be addressed in the country, but do you think Larry Kudlow understands that? No, he wants to extract more wealth. I mean, but that sort of epitomizes the Trump campaign from start to finish, in my opinion. He sold labor on this idea that I'm going to stop the outsourcing of jobs, which never happened. Outsourcing of jobs continued at the same pace while he was president. That's verifiably true. He wasn't pro-labor. He campaigned as being pro-labor, and I could understand how people got sucked into that messaging, 4 or 5 years ago, but now not so much. We have a track record. We see what he's about. We see what he did. And he is definitely a member of the ultra wealthy class in this country. And that's who he governed for. And that's just not up for debate as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I thought it was interesting to hear the framing of how, ballot harvesting was another thing she brought up. I would say a lot of the left is against ballot harvesting. For folks that don't know what that is, that's so for example, in the state of California, we used to have a law that said, if you take a ballot that's not yours to the drop off, you have to be a caregiver or a family member, right?
Yeah.
You can't just be a stranger. They changed it to make it anybody. So now, of course, the abuse is that I can just go to, some nursing home and take all the ballots and mark them if they give them to me, right? If they forfeit the ballot to me and mark them for my candidate. But, the Republicans have absolutely engaged in ballot harvesting in Arizona. There's been cases about it. In fact, I think everybody agrees that's that's probably not the most ethical thing to do, right?
Yeah.
But
this is one of the problems, especially with a lot of that a lot of the far right a lot of the right just never paid attention to the way that elections work, because their people just showed up on election day and voted in person and also did mail-in balloting. But it's one of those we just kind of the general right just discovered this thing called ballot harvesting, and it sounds evil. It's harvesting ballot. That's what people talk about when they go hunt a deer. They harvested that deer. This is a thing, and so this is again kind of the misunderstanding of a lot of ways that just elections work on a daily basis. I remember talking to these people after 2021, building all these election conspiracies. Well, they're not letting us do this. It's the way they've always done that. This is the way they count ballots.
This is nothing new. And in fact, I think the Republicans were the initiators of ballot harvesting, not the Democrats. The Democrats, of course, have joined in because they realize that they can get more people to vote this way.
Yeah. But also it's a lot of times there's, groups. I mean, you have groups that either, senior groups, AARP might do this type of thing and like have organized pickup because people can't get to the rolls, and making sure that they vote.
Right. There are legitimate ways it can happen, and there's illegitimate ways that are unethical. It's legal regardless, but I just thought it was weird that
it's just like I'm still convinced that Donald Trump lost 2022 solely because he told his voters not to vote via mail-in ballot. Republicans historically have been enormous, like kicking. It's like 50 to 20, like 80 to 20 when it comes to voting by mail-in ballot. And so like this was like a hard shift when a lot of people just didn't know they had voted by mail-in ballot their entire lives, or they'd done whatever, they traveled, whatever. And it definitely like edged, like, never mind just like the number of Republicans that died during COVID because of them being not believers. Those two things, to me, that's my like election conspiracies. Those two things came together, and that's the only reason that Donald Trump
I don't know, man. That sounds like a conspiracy theory to me. Zach, that's a conspiracy. You're promoting a conspiracy.
Well, I just haven't. It's to me, it's a conspiracy. I haven't proven it with facts yet. So like,
right.
So to me, it's like just to like pin it up on the wall type of thing.
I got you. No, I mean, it could be the case. That makes sense. So I want to talk about now. Shift gears. I've got multiple videos on this particular story. Gabrielle Hansen is an alderman in Franklin, in Tennessee, state of Tennessee, in Franklin County. She's running for mayor of Franklin right now. And she has been in the news recently for a couple of things. One story was because she had used a photo off of somebody's social media that was a group of Black folks having lunch. And she said, these are my friends. Look, I have a diverse support out there. These women love me, blah, blah. And then a local journalist there, Phil Williams, investigated the story and discovered that none of these women actually knew this candidate at all, did not support her, and that she had used this photo without their permission, which is fucking crazy, right? Like, what was she thinking? Also, I stand Phil Williams. Phil Williams has been doing a lot of breaking reporting on this. He's in local Nashville news station there, and I have to read this. This is on his page on the News Channel 5 website. Literally says, to gauge Phil's impact, consider this quote from a prominent Nashville political strategist. If the press calls, call your PR person. If Phil Williams calls, call your lawyer because you're in trouble.
Nice.
I stand you, Phil Williams.
I'd love to have that quote. Yeah.
I would love that quote. I would be like, yes. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to get into this story because Gabrielle Hansen has now aligned herself with literal Nazis. This is, when I say Nazis, I mean, yes, they're Nazis. And she's been using them, at least once that I'm aware of, there might be more times, as security, believe it or not. So I want to play this first video is a news report from Phil Williams. This is the local 5 channel there in Nashville. I'm going to play a clip of this from 46 to 423, and we're going to talk about some of the players, because I actually can identify a bunch of these guys in this video, and we're going to talk about them.
Residents packed City Hall to hear from the candidates who want to run the town for the next 4 years. They were joined by nearly a dozen white supremacists.
Someone said you were here making a statement. I don't know what that statement is.
No, we're not making a statement. We're here for Gabrielle Hansen's statement.
You are?
Yeah.
White supremacists protecting a candidate who has made fighting LGBTQ pride events a focus of her campaign for mayor. Some were not too eager for their identities to be known.
We're just making sure everything goes well.
Okay, and are you concerned about things not going well?
It's a possibility, and we're just here to protect Gabrielle.
You're here to protect her?
Yes.
I hear you're all here for Gabrielle?
Yes, sir.
So what's the purpose?
We're just here to show her some support, that's all.
The man on the left is Sean Kaufman, who has been described by the Stop Anti-Semitism watchdog group as, quote, a disturbed neo-Nazi and Holocaust denier with a documented history of violence and a massive cache of firearms. A video posted online shows Kaufman and other extremists earlier this year outside a nonprofit group's drag show fundraiser. There's Kaufman giving a Nazi salute. He also showed up at a Chattanooga drag show last year with other extremists. In 2020, Kaufman was arrested for disorderly conduct at a Black Lives Matter protest.
Gabrielle's a friend of mine, and she's had some credible threats against her, so I'm just posted up out here.
Okay. Show her some support.
Then there's Brad Lewis. He's the operator of the Lewis Country Store on the far west side of Nashville, a store known for its extreme right-wing messaging. When the store recently went on the market, Gabrielle Hansen was the real estate agent who got the listing. A recent investigation by the Southern Poverty Law Center revealed how the second floor of the store was being used as a white nationalist fight club. Lewis responded in a post on Telegram calling himself an actual literal Nazi.
I forget the name of the group that got you so much publicity a few months ago, the Tennessee
Active Club.
Active Club.
Yeah, you heard them in Cookville too.
The Tennessee Active Club aims to prepare white men for what it sees as a coming war within society. Jeff Tischhauser was a senior researcher for the Southern Poverty Law Center investigation.
This is a group that openly is anti-Semitic. They are racist, full of racist, bigoted white supremacists. And online, they're worshiping Hitler.
And yet, when Gabrielle Hanson's husband arrived at the forum, Brad Lewis and another man were at his side. Hanson and a hired security guy, no connection to the Active Club, were joined by Sean Kaufman, the Nazi-saluting figure who apparently heads the Tennessee Active Club, which made us wonder, why would she be associating with such figures?
Ms. Henson, the people you're with have described themselves as literal Nazis. Is this the type of people you should be associating with?
Excuse me, Phil.
They have said they're literal Nazis.
Is it time that you don't harass?
She is here with people who have described themselves as Nazis. Is that appropriate for someone who wants to be the mayor of Franklin?
Those were questions her supporters didn't want us asking.
It's so nice to see you this evening. Thank
Excuse
you
me,
for
I'm
coming.
not talking to you.
But that's so rude of you. I'm saying hello to you.
Saw that end clip go viral somewhere, and that woman is the creepiest person.
I know. So, I mean, they obviously know that these guys are literal neo-Nazis. Sean Kaufman, somebody that I've reported on, he's been in California. He was part of, there was a boxing match between the Active Clubs and Patriot Front in San Diego last year. He participated in that. He wears a kilt often, like this yellow and black kilt. He goes by his Telegram name. He's probably changed it now. It used to be Boog Fuhrer. So, he's definitely yes, when he says I'm literally a Nazi, he means that. I want to talk about Brad Lewis.
Actually, literally a Nazi. Sorry.
Yeah.
Which is, I love the only way that local, this guy's great. I recognize him once I've listened to the whole thing, but the only way that local news would ever call someone a Nazi is if they said,
could
had
actually,
a sign
yes.
and said,
I'm like,
I
well,
am
he
an
actually
actual
said
little
it.
Nazi. I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Right.
It's wild because seeing that type of thing on local news is incredible. But
yeah. So, Sean Kaufman's been around the white supremacist scene for a very long time. He's, there's other charges I'm not going to get into today related to things he's done. So also I wanted to point out two guys that are associated with this Lewis County store. Brad Lewis, who is the guy that has, if you'll notice, he has a Proud Boy tattoo on his cheek, big PB tattoo. He's an ex-Proud Boy. Another one of them, Robert Bray, is also an ex-Proud Boy. You see him wearing the white and black t-shirt with the Hitler or the Nazi emblem on it with the eagle. So these guys are both ex-Proud Boys that are now full-on, white supremacists, neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call them, which is obviously a thing. I have a photo of Robert Bray with Enrique Tarrio a couple years back. So I want to point out something here that is really wild. This is how far the Overton window has moved. This is a candidate running for mayor in Franklin that didn't see there be any problem with this. She thought in her mind, I'm going to call up Brad Lewis, ask him to bring his guys because I'm, fearful of something might happen to me. I'm not sure what. And they're going to show up and there's not going to be a media circus surrounding this. Nobody's going to have a problem with it. What?
The idea that they think that because there's a lot of stories similar to this in different levels where it's just you're okay with the Proud Boys associating with you, you're okay with whatever, and just they think they can just power through it, which sometimes they can because a lot of people don't, but when it's actual literal Nazis,
right? It's a little bit different. Proud Boys. This is like Heil Hitler. I wear swastikas. I have tattoos. Nazi. Sean Kaufman has Nazi tattoos. I should do a report on these guys one day. But in the Active Clubs, let's talk about this for a minute. Is something I've discussed on the show before. This is the the brainchild of Robert Rundo, who is currently sitting in a jail here in Los Angeles. waiting his trial. But, you know, active clubs, this was supposed to be the way to bring the younger generation into this, you know, into the white supremacist movement, right? So it's like, I eat healthy, I fight, you know, people that are against my beliefs. I'm a fascist, like I'm an outwardly, I own my fascism. Fascism is good, actually, you know, kind of stuff. But they try to give it this sort of glossy overcoat, right? So it's not like, I'm not a guy that's going to walk around in Doc Martens with red laces. I'm not going to shave my head. I have the same beliefs, but I'm going to soften that look and try to make it more appealing to folks in a way, so that they can maybe buy into this belief system, maybe appeal to maybe some soft racism that they might have, and I can red pill them over, you know, to what I believe now, which is obviously effective. You have Proud Boys that were probably never thought about being, you know, neo-Nazis, but here they are now. They've gone that far down the pipeline.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's everyone who learned everything wrong about watched Fight Club and learned everything wrong from it. But
right,
you know, I mean, this is the problem. I mean, you know, it's like the MMA world has been, you know, edging that kind of world long enough. I mean, with Rogan and like being their like the face of their group, and enough of those MMA stars that like it's not surprising that the kind of exercise, you know, the fitness world has figured it out. I mean, there's a, you know, it's not, again, it's like not the fitness world, but like they figured out that this is a way through it. There's a whole bunch of different TikTok health TikTokers, I guess, that like also are basically using it as what is the QAnon Anonymous podcast calls it the manosphere.
The manosphere. Oh yeah.
Dragging people into that
Andrew
way.
Tate kind of world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's sadly not surprising. I mean, at least they're fighting each other. But it is, I mean, it is, you know, it's worrying.
I think there's some individuals fighting each other. I do want to point out that this for folks that saw, there was a viral video that happened where Proud Boys and some neo-Nazis got into a fight. I strongly believe that was a personal beef, that it had nothing to do, that at least started that way. And so then you kind of morphed into this thing online where they started making these posts like, we're done with you on both sides, right? Yeah. I saw some of the Nazis were saying that Proud Boys were now Antifa, which was completely hilarious.
Yeah.
Proud Boys are Antifa, really?
I guess the difference is like, especially with things like that, it's just like the Proud Boys, at least some of them at least, have some level of knowing that this is not like how you get new members in the way that they have been. This is not how you are able to, you know, usually just kind of like hang out with people and go to CPAC and like not be booted from these places. Like if you're an actual Nazi, or if you're seen and can be associated with them, then even the Republican Party, for sometimes at least, will end up being like, yeah, no, we're not. You stay over there. Like even MTG, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene will be like, yeah, no, not actual Nazis. Proud Boys, cool. But if you're, you know, actually, you know, like saying the 14 words out loud, then it's a problem.
Right. Then it's a problem. Yeah.
So
I love that this station actually went and talked to Brad Lewis. This is great. I want to play a little bit of this clip, because now the white supremacist is pissed at the mayor candidate, and because he feels like he's not getting his due and he's going to get thrown out under the bus. So let's play this clip.
This afternoon in the race for Franklin mayor.
We are talking about a local white supremacist figure now turning on Gabrielle Hansen. Hi, everyone. I'm Hunter Hoagland.
I'm Rory Johnston. Yeah, Gabrielle Hansen had tried to distance herself from the hate group and its members who showed up at a candidate forum 1 week ago. But the man who organized that show of force now says she's lying.
News Channel 5's chief investigative reporter Phil Williams has been on top of this story now for weeks. And Phil, this is yet another unexpected twist.
Absolutely. The person that we're talking about is a man named Brad Lewis. He describes himself as a white nationalist. He's also called himself a, quote, literal Nazi. Now, he has told a conservative podcaster that Hansen knew exactly what she was getting.
Because, I mean, I consider Gabrielle, you know, we've done business together. Our politics line up mostly. You know, right-leaning, and, you know, considered her a friend of mine. And I said, hey, if you need any help, let me know.
Brad Lewis appeared Sunday night on the right-wing podcast, The Patriot Punkcast.
Yeah, we showed up to basically pull security by request.
Lewis said he was the one who organized the white supremacist show of force at last Monday's candidates forum as a favor to Henson because of fears that there might be people who wanted to disrupt the forum. Lewis called those people, quote, Antifa. In fact, there was no threat.
No comment about that whatsoever?
Henson later tried to quell the controversy by saying she never asked them to be there. But Lewis says she knew exactly what they planned. In fact, she asked for it.
I'm tired of being a lackey or cannon fodder for politicians that, you know, they want your help. And then when the heat gets, you know, turned up on them, then they're going to throw you under the bus.
And now our investigation is going to take yet another bizarre turn. Is Miss Henson or her campaign behind an effort by those white supremacist groups to harass her critics? We'll show you the new evidence we've now uncovered coming up at 6. Rory?
Okay, I stand Phil.
Yeah.
Phil's awesome. Also, let me
yeah.
clarify. They used part of a podcast that Phil was not related with to fill in the blanks from him following him around and asking him questions, just to clarify. Carry on though. Sorry, I just wanted.
Oh, I was just commenting as somebody who shows up like wearing. I always wear like a polo shirt like this and like khakis. I enjoy like somebody who covers this world or whatever. And it's like wearing like standard clothes. Like all my other fellow journalists are very cool and everything like that. And I'm just like, I'm just here to blend in.
Right.
And like he's wearing it, but yeah, it's just like.
So I mean,
like,
interesting enough, I don't see where she's made the moves to throw him under the bus. Like he's claiming I haven't seen that. I mean, she's just not saying anything at all. I think if she was like out there actually saying, yes, I made a mistake. I brought these Nazis. They're terrible. She hasn't actually done that. So I thought that was strange that
I mean, I think that you need like, I mean, I'm trying to remember which like Nick Fuentes for a long time was like perfectly okay with people distancing themselves from him because he knew that like, that's the way you gain power is that you just quietly, you know, the head nod and you know, whatever. It's like, oh, I had nothing to do with, you know, Nick Fuentes. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And so like, there's definitely two different people that like understand kind of, you got to understand the game that like she's going to use like these politicians are going to use you. And then maybe when she wins, you can use her later. But like, obviously he's not like a lot of the Proud Boys I found like aren't happy without getting he wants the attention too. For it, and he's certainly he certainly stands out in a crowd. So I can't imagine that he would get the attention. I don't know if you're a former Proud Boy, like wouldn't you like grow a beard or something like that at least? Like, but
I don't know. It's crazy. We're living in a crazy moment right now. That is definitely the case. All right, that's all I've got for us today. I do want to get to. We have some super chats. I think, Colin. Do we have super chats? Let's read those if we have them. Dark Queen, $9.99. Thank you, Dark Queen. We appreciate that. Appreciate your support. No question. Notary, I thought I was up to speed on this stuff, but I've learned so much. Still, thanks for keeping on top of it. Awesome. We do love to like.
There's so much more to be worried about than you could possibly imagine. Like,
honestly, it's just wild because I think it kind of puts into perspective that this is kind of a growing thing out there. Yeah. It's still not a majority, obviously, of the population, not even close. I mean, maybe 10%. I don't know, but
I mean, there's
enough where it's like, really?
I'm not worried. I mean, until we hit a certain point, but like, I'm never worried as much about the guys that you see in those videos. Like, what I am worried about is the people that are okay with the guys in those videos showing up places.
I agree.
And that won't look at, you don't have to punch a Nazi in the face to be anti-fascist, but like not being okay with like when your candidate or when a politician shows up and doesn't decry the Proud Boys and actual literal Nazis, then that's what worries me. Like the people that the people that show up to a General Trump rally don't necessarily worry me, even though they are worrying. Or but it's just like,
I agree.
I don't they're okay with it. Yeah, you know, it's like my whole thing with like, you don't have to be a Donald Trump in 2016, at least to be a Donald Trump supporter. You don't have to be racist, but you have to be okay with racism. Like that's what worries me because that's or
anti-Semitism. I think honestly, and I'm going to say this, and I think this is absolutely true. I think a lot of what's driving this is anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, and those theories literally transcend at this point every group. I've heard them from every corner of the political sphere at this point. And I don't know if people recognize that. It's become
a lot of people that spread them don't even realize that they're anti-Semitic. I mean, they kind of, I assume they probably
think
get
you're
it, but like,
correct.
you have
No,
to
I
tell
think
them,
you're
and they're like, "That's not anti-Semitic," and I'm like, well, "Do you understand like the background of this?" Like, yeah.
No, you're correct on that. So, you know, and this is something that has been happening for years. And if you look back to some of the claims the alt-right was trying to make, you know, in its nascent early days, one of their goals was to move the Overton window on this. And I do think, even though, again, we're talking a very, very small percentage of population, they have done that because they have normalized parts of these conversations that would have been entirely unacceptable, you know, 6 or 7 years ago. So, but at the same time, I think people are also more paying more attention to it, and they're not happy about it. So that there is some reaction to that, where it's like, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we have both going on. Anyway, where can everybody find you, Zach, if they want to keep up with your reporting? Wait, did we get through all of the? Hang on, Colin, did we do? Am I jumping the gun? We're good.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Where can everybody find you? Where can they want to keep up with you?
I just quickly wanted to react to somebody in the chat. Be like,
Oh, right
I'm a
on.
huge
Yes.
Jack Benny fan as well. Just very rare that you hear a 1930s radio show host references. I grew up on Jack Benny audio tapes, listening to them every single night. I can literally do Jack Benny. Like I'm thinking. Anyway, but like it's so I'm happy to see that. The Jack
Right
Benny. I'm a Jack Benny stan. So, but anyway, yeah, you can find me. ZD Roberts on Twitter while it lasts. I'm ZD Roberts over on Blue Sky. That's like, those are the two sites that I kind of am around most. VISU news at substack.com. You can get my newsletter. Everything so far is free there. You just sign up for the email, and eventually, hopefully I can start, you know, doing devoted work for that. But also Bucks County Beacon and the Progressive Magazine are two places that I also work.
All right. Excellent. Zach, thanks for joining us today. Everybody else, have a great weekend. Go out and have some fun and enjoy the autumn weather, and happy Friday the 13th before Halloween.